hailing back from the days of Medarot 5 and Medarot G for his first ever appearance in the world of D. It is MWB02 Vagueman, a kit of triple wave, multi-leg, leg ability Explorer, which grants S rank on road terrain, in addition to the leg standard matches. Now, like I said, Vagueman is a model that has never seen the realm of having only appeared in Medarot 5 and in Medarot G, which means he's only seen the realm of 2 and 2.5D to a point, and this is definitely going to be never for him. But we've also seen his new refurbished art in the image gacha for quite some time now. His release at some point was kind of to be expected. He just simply didn't know. Wave on all three of his parts is an ailment type of melee attack that, upon successfully inflicting the wave status on the opponent, will inflict them with a 25% debuff to their heat and their cooldown effects, which means they will be going notably slower, but it will also inflict them with a no defend status. This means that any hit that does manage to land is guaranteed to be a critical hit, no matter what it is. The only real drawback is they are still able to dodge or graze relatively well, but if it lands, it's a free crit no matter which way you look at it. Multi-legs also means that Vagueman will have relatively decent coverage across most terrain, usually trading more terrain matching compatibility in cost of having slightly lower specs across the board. And this does kind of seem the case for Vagueman as well. With a leg mobility of 773, he's actually not bad. This is a multi-leg that you definitely would want to raise just to have on hand as a worst case scenario, because more often than not, most multi-legs tend to want to sit between 6 and maybe 7 or 800 at highest, and that's not including any particular boss or OP ones that are just absurdly broken in all capacity. So this is a very nice budget-friendly leg that you can easily. An evade of 1023 isn't too shabby either. It means he can dodge or graze fairly well, but a melee resist of 562 is definitely not great, as this does mean that his very low defenses against melee attacks means he's going to be taking a pretty high amount of punish damage to get in his space. But he does round it out with a shoot resist of 1265, so he can most certainly hold his own at range just a little bit better than he could personally. When it comes to armor on his arms and his legs, it's actually not too bad either. Kind of par for the course, I guess you could expect. With a head armor of 3479, arms at 3000 each, and legs at 3900, much of his bulk is actually kind of situated between his head and his, which is kind of where you want it. But those arms are relatively squishy. At the cost, though, they do actually have some pretty good stats, though, as far as an ailment attack is concerned. Not packing pierce damage is kind of a pain, but given that it is an ailment, not necessarily something that it needs to pay attention to. All three attacks do have a base damage that is relatively nice, but 1232 for the head, 801 for the right arm, and just over 1100 for the left arm. Success over 1000 on all three of his parts, and his heat and cool stats sit really solidly between the high 500s and the 700s, which means even if he's using a slightly slower leg, he is still going to be able to zip back and forth across the terrain relatively easily, and to be able to inflict wave relatively consistently. And the leg ability of Explorer actually does give him a notably higher terrain, as this means that any other multi-legs that would struggle with a road-based or asphalt-based terrain, Vagueman is basically built for. So he's going to be running circles around a lot of other multi-legs struggling behind, and he may not be as fast as, say, using a wheeled or a bipedal leg on either of these, but it still is every advantage to him. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, unfortunately, I still do have to rate Vagueman a relatively low 4.5 out of 10, primarily for the fact that while his stats aren't terrible, the fact that he's using the same ailment on all three parts does make him extreme. And if anyone is using stat cleanse on the opposing side of the field, that does basically negate half the reason he'd be there to begin with. However, once you do also have all three opponents inflicted with that bind status, Eggman's just kind of there, and it makes it really hard to use him effectively because he kind of already served his purpose. Aside from basically just kind of getting in some punish shots just because he can. However, as a mixed parts score, I do have to rate him just a little bit higher at a 5 out of 10 to balance him out. Because while using triple wave is definitely not a smart idea, if you were to mix his parts up and make him kind of a mock chimera based kind of alien fighter, such as say using wave with say hold or thunder or freeze or slip or something similar, then that would give Vagueman just a little bit more of a reason to stick around because he has more than one thing he can bring to the table, kind of remove the redundancy argument from what holds Vagueman back. Plus, like I said, his multi-legs at the very least are also still relatively solid, so even if you don't use them conventionally or constantly, they are still a very solid budget-friendly option for a leg that you can raise fairly decent, good stats, and a leg ability that actually gives him a mastery on a terrain that most other multiped legs tend to not be very good at all.